Welcome to The Voter's Voice, where we lay out the bills and you decide if they make sense.
Today we're jumping into something that's, well, it's constantly changing. Healthcare.
It really is.
And specifically, we're looking at what happens when big finance, think private equity, hedge funds, gets much more involved in how patient care is delivered.
Yeah, it's a huge intersection.
It raises this really fundamental question, doesn't it? Can those profit motives really sit alongside the core mission of actually healing people?
That's exactly the tension. And what's fascinating right now is seeing that question move from sort of academic debate into real legislative action, like right now.
Okay, so what are we focusing on today?
Today we're unpacking California Senate Bill 351, SB 351. And look, this isn't just some minor tweak. It's a really significant move to reinforce California's rules about the corporate practice of medicine and dentistry.
The CPOM and CPOD doctrines, right?
Exactly. The basic idea there is simple. Medical decisions belong to doctors and dentists, not corporations just focused on the bottom line. This bill wants to make that line clearer, stronger.
So, our mission here is to get under the hood of this bill. Understand how it's trying to curb that growing influence of private equity and hedge funds in healthcare. We've pulled this together by looking really closely at the bill itself, its history in the legislature, and what people think the effects might be.
It's quite a story already.
Yeah, and you might be surprised how decisions that seem purely administrative, driven by finance, can actually really impact the care you get. We'll explore what this means for healthcare's future, maybe not just in California.
And it's important to see the context, right?
Yeah.
SB 351 isn't just appearing out of nowhere.
Right. What's the background?
Well, the bigger picture is this rising tide of private equity and hedge fund money flowing into healthcare practices. And that's raised concerns, big concerns.
Like what specifically?
The core worry this bill tackles is stopping these financial players from meddling with doctors' clinical judgment or from, taking over control of how practices are run day to day.
So this isn't just a California thing then. Is this happening elsewhere?
Oh, absolutely. California's move fits into a national pattern. We're seeing similar discussions and legislative efforts in places like Oregon, Massachusetts too. They're all grappling with how to regulate these kinds of investments in healthcare.
Interesting.
So yeah, it's definitely not just a West Coast story.
Yeah.
It's part of a much larger conversation about the future shape of healthcare delivery across the U.S.
Okay, so let's get specific then. Tell us about SB 351 itself. When did it come about?
Sure. So Senate Bill 351, it was officially introduced February 12, 2025. The author is Senator Christopher Cabaldon, a Democrat representing the Napa area.
And its main goal?
The central aim is to codify basically right into formal law and really bolster California's existing bans on the corporate practice of medicine and dentistry, making those rules stronger.
And the language seems pretty direct. It says the goal is to ensure that clinical decision-making and treatment decisions are exclusively in the hands of licensed healthcare providers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's very clearly about protecting the independence of doctors and dentists from financial pressures that aren't about patient well-being.
Protecting that professional autonomy.
That's the heart of it.
Oh.
And, this isn't the first time Sacramento has tackled this specific issue.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, SB 351 is actually a reintroduction. It's very similar to a bill from last year, Assembly Bill 3129.
AB 3129. I remember that. Didn't it pass the legislature?
It did, yeah. Passed both the Assembly and the Senate. But then it was vetoed by Governor Newsom.
So the fact that it's back basically shows they're pretty serious about this.
It shows a really strong, persistent legislative focus. Absolutely. They didn't just drop it after the veto.
But I heard there's a key difference this time around with SB 351, something missing compared to the old bill.
That's right. A significant change. Unlike AB 3129, this new bill, SB 351, it omits a provision that would have required getting prior notice and, crucially, consent from the California Attorney General for certain types of private equity deals in healthcare.
Why drop that? What does that signal?
It likely signals a strategic adjustment. Maybe learning from why the previous bill got vetoed, trying a different path to get it signed this time.
Makes sense.
And interestingly, there's another bill in the mix now, AB 1415, that one proposes having these kinds of transactions reviewed by the Office of Healthcare Affordability.
Okay. So maybe not AG approval, but review by a different health-focused body.
Possibly. It suggests that they might be exploring a more layered, maybe multi-pronged approach to overseeing these deals, not just one single checkpoint.
Okay, so we know what the bill aims to do, but who exactly is it targeting? The definitions for private equity and hedge fund seem, well, pretty broad.
They are quite broad, yes. SB 351 lays them out specifically. A hedge fund is defined simply as a pool of funds managed by investors for the purpose of earning a return on those funds. Pretty straightforward.
Okay. And private equity group.
That's defined as an investor or group of investors who primarily engage in the raising or returning of capital and who invests, develops, or disposes of specified assets.
Right, but the analysis we saw suggests this could sweep in more than just the usual suspects, doesn't it? Like venture capital, family offices, even investment arms of hospitals.
Exactly. That's the surprising scope. The initial definition is expansive. It could potentially capture venture capital funds, some family offices, maybe even innovation investment funds run by hospital systems themselves. It casts a wide net initially.
But there are exceptions, right? It's not that broad in practice.
Correct. Crucially, there are exclusions that narrow down who it actually applies to. For instance, it explicitly carves out purely passive investors, those who just provide capital but have zero say in management. They're not the target.
And wasn't there a really important amendment recently about hospitals?
Yes, a very significant one. On June 16, 2025, an amendment was added that specifically excludes hospitals, hospital systems, and any entity they manage or control from being defined as a private equity group or hedge fund under this bill.
Okay, so that really clarifies things. What does that exclusion tell us about who they're really going after?
It suggests a very precise legislative aim. It's not anti-investment across the board. It seems laser-focused on those specific financial entities, private equity and hedge funds, whose business models are seen as potentially different, perhaps more profit-focused or involving quicker operational changes compared to traditional providers like hospitals.
So distinguishing their potential impact on clinical freedom and patient care from, say, how a hospital system operates.
That seems to be the thinking. It's a nuanced strategy targeting what they perceive as a specific kind of risk.
All right. So let's get to the core prohibitions. What are the big do-nots in SB 351?
Okay, the absolute core is safeguarding clinical judgment. The bill explicitly forbids private equity groups or hedge funds from interfering with a doctor's or dentist's professional decisions.
Like deciding what tests a patient needs.
Exactly. Determining appropriate diagnostic tests, deciding if a patient needs a referral or a specialist consultation. Those decisions must remain solely with the licensed provider.
And it goes further, right? Something about ultimate responsibility.
Yes. It states the ultimate overall care of the patient, including this selection of treatment options, has to rest exclusively with the clinician.
And it gets really practical, too. Things like patient volume or working hours.
Right. These financial entities cannot set patient quotas like telling a doctor they must see X number of patients per hour or dictate their working hours. The concern is that kind of pressure inevitably impacts the quality of care.
That really hits home, thinking about potential pressures doctors face.
It does. And beyond direct clinical decisions, the bill also tackles operational control. It prohibits these firms from controlling or even being delegated the power to manage certain administrative functions seen as critical to care delivery.
Such as?
Such as owning patient medical records or deciding what goes in them. That's a big one.
Absolutely. What else on the operational side?
They can't be in charge of selecting, hiring, or firing clinical staff based on competency. They can't set the terms for contracts with insurance companies, the third-party payers.
Billing and equipment decisions, too.
Yes. They can't make decisions about medical coding and billing procedures, and they can't approve the selection of medical equipment or supplies for the practice. It's a pretty thorough list.
It sounds like they're trying to wall off the clinical and core operational side from direct financial control.
That's a good way to put it. And importantly, while some of these ideas echo existing guidance from the medical board.
Right, this isn't all brand new territory.
Correct. But SB 351 makes it explicit law, expands on it, and adds this crucial bit. It prohibits entering into any agreement or arrangement that would even enable such interference.
Ah, so it's trying to prevent workarounds, like using complex management structures, MSOs, to achieve the same result indirectly.
Precisely. It's trying to close potential loopholes, looking at the effect of an arrangement, not just its surface structure, preventing someone from setting up the dominoes, even if they don't push the first one themselves.
Okay, let's talk about contracts, specifically restrictive covenants, non-competes, non-disparagement clauses. California's been moving against those generally, hasn't it?
Yes, there's a clear trend. And SB 351 reinforces that in this specific context. It says, any contract management agreements, asset sales, etc., between these financial entities and healthcare practices cannot include non-compete or non-disparagement clauses binding the provider.
Explicitly or implicitly?
Both. Any such clause would be void, unenforceable, period.
But wait, there's an exception, isn't there? Something about selling a business.
Yes, and this is a really important nuance. The bill includes a specific carve-out. It clarifies that this ban doesn't invalidate a non-compete agreement that comes up in the legitimate context of selling a business.
Okay, so if a doctor sells their whole practice, a non-compete tied to that sale could still be valid.
Potentially, yes, if it's otherwise enforceable under California law regarding business sales. The bill isn't trying to upend standard M&A practice there.
So what's the goal of this section then? It seems like a balancing act.
It absolutely is. The idea seems to be stop private equity using non-competes just to lock in doctors after they've invested, limiting mobility and maybe suppressing wages. But at the same time, respect that when someone genuinely sells a business, including its goodwill, a non-compete might be a legitimate part of that specific transaction.
Protecting doctors' freedom to move versus protecting the value in a legitimate business sale. Tricky stuff.
Very tricky. Now, maybe the biggest shift this bill brings is around enforcement.
How so? What changes?
It gives the California Attorney General, the AG, significantly more power. SB 351 explicitly grants the AG the authority to go to court and seek injunctive relief and other equitable remedies to enforce the bill's provisions.
Injunctive relief, meaning they can get a court order to make a firm stop doing something prohibited.
Exactly. A court order saying, stop this now. Plus, the AG can potentially recover attorney's fees and costs.
So this takes things from, what, medical board guidance, which is maybe more persuasive?
Right. Guidance is influential, but not the same as a direct legal hammer.
And turns it into mandatory legal authority, backed by the AG's office and the courts.
Precisely. It's a huge shift. Violations aren't just a regulatory issue anymore. They can lead directly to lawsuits, court orders, and potentially significant financial penalties.
So the stakes just got much higher for any private equity or hedge fund operating in California healthcare.
Dramatically higher. It definitely creates a higher stakes environment, as you put it. Much more legal and financial risk for noncompliance.
Okay, given all that, where does SB 351 stand right now? What's its journey been?
Let's track it. Introduced in the Senate back in February 2025, it moved through several Senate committees, Judiciary, Appropriations, and got strong positive votes, like 9-1 in Judiciary.
Pretty solid support then.
Very solid. Then it passed the full Senate floor end of May 2025. The vote was substantial. 30 ayes, only 6 noes.
So it cleared the Senate easily. What happened when it got to the Assembly?
It was sent over to the Assembly and referred to their committees. Then we saw that key amendment mid-June, the one excluding hospitals and hospital systems.
Right, the one we discussed.
And most recently, just a few days ago, on June 24th, 2025, the Assembly Business and Professions Committee gave it a unanimous do-pass vote, 16-0.
Wow, unanimous.
And they re-referred it to the Assembly Judiciary Committee.
So as of late June 2025, it's passed the Senate, it's moving through Assembly committees with strong support. What's the outlook?
The outlook seems very positive for the bill's passage. It's actively in progress in the Assembly. Given the consistent strong votes and bipartisan support in committees, there's a high probability it will eventually pass the Assembly too and head to the governor's desk.
Okay, let's talk impact. If this becomes law, what does it mean for healthcare businesses, especially those using management services organizations, MSOs?
That's a critical area. The bill's restrictions definitely hit the typical scope of MSO agreements. Now, the analysis suggests it probably doesn't outlaw MSO arrangements entirely if they strictly comply with all the new prohibitions.
Meaning the MSO can't control those clinical or key operational areas we listed?
Exactly. The MSO's role might need to be significantly curtailed or redefined. And those friendly physician models, where a PE firm technically doesn't own the practice, but effectively controls it through a compliant doctor owner who delegates everything, those look very vulnerable now.
Because the bill prohibits arrangements that enable interference, even indirectly.
Right. It puts those structures under intense scrutiny. It makes you think about scenarios. Like if the MSO, controlled by PE, sets budgets so tight that the friendly physician owner has to cut skilled nursing staff, impacting care. This bill aims to prevent that pathway to control.
So what should businesses involved in these kinds of structures be doing right now?
The advice is clear. Be proactive. Don't wait. Private equity groups, hedge funds, and the practices they partner with need to start reviewing everything.
Like what specifically?
Rigorous review of all current agreements. MSO contracts, purchase agreements, operating agreements, shareholder agreements. Check them against the bill's prohibitions line by line.
And they might need to actually change how they operate.
Very likely. They may need to restructure their operational models to ensure, without any ambiguity, that clinical decisions and those key administrative functions stay firmly in the hands of the licensed professionals.
What about the contracts themselves?
Adjustments are probably needed. Add explicit language affirming professional autonomy. Remove all prohibited non-compete and non-disparagement clauses, unless they fit that narrow sale of business exception.
Sounds like they need good legal advice.
Absolutely critical. Engage experienced healthcare lawyers who understand these nuances, and keep watching the bill, plus related ones like AB 1415.
And maybe do some risk planning.
Definitely. Conduct thorough risk assessments of current structures and implement training so everyone understands the new rules. It's about mitigating risk in this changed landscape.
It really sounds like this fundamentally changes the math for investing in California healthcare for these types of firms.
It does. The whole risk-reward calculation shifts. Investment models that relied heavily on, say, driving aggressive efficiencies that might compromise care or locking in doctors with non-competes, those models might not be viable anymore.
So potentially lower returns for some PE investors?
Potentially, yes, for certain strategies, but it could also encourage more sustainable partnerships, ones that are genuinely physician-centric and respect clinical independence. It could reshape the investment landscape towards different kinds of deals.
So bringing this all together.
Yeah, wrapping up, SB 351 is clearly a major move by California. It's putting legal force behind the state's long-standing policy of keeping corporate interests separate from medical judgment, specifically targeting PE and hedge funds.
And that shift from guidance to the AG having mandatory enforcement power is huge.
It's the game changer, a powerful reaffirmation of prioritizing professional autonomy in healthcare.
So as we finish this deep dive, here's something to think about. If California's SB 351 does pass and starts to reshape the financial side of healthcare there, what happens next?
Right? Will other states follow suit?
Exactly. Could we see a ripple effect, a nationwide rethinking of how we balance investment in healthcare with the need for independent clinical judgment? And ultimately, what could that mean for your healthcare down the road?
Hope you enjoyed this episode. Tune in again to make sense out of all the bills.